Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about all the books that I read in the month of September. So I think I read a total of 10 books in September, which is actually a pretty good goal for me. I mean, usually I read about maybe 5 to 7 books. So 10, I was stretching myself out a bit. And before, I know it's already like the second week of October, you know, just trying to get the groove of everything, and I literally just decided to film this today. So we're a little late, but better late than never, right? That's enough chit chat. Let's just get right into the books. So the first book I read was When She Returned by Lucinda Berry. So I read a few of Lucinda Berry's books before. You can probably see a few on my shelf. Saving Noah and The Perfect Child are a couple of my favorites by her. So I've, just been interested to read more of her books. I really like how Lucinda Berry kind of really dives into the psychology and the mental health aspects of different people, like the really misunderstood parts of people's inner workings of their minds. And I really like how she turns that into such compelling stories, or even just stories that really get you thinking about what you would do if you were in this situation. And I do think it really puts a lot into it really makes people open their minds up and try to think about these really hard topics. But I do gotta say, When She Returned was actually very disappointing. So I thought the premise sounded interesting. A woman goes missing for years and her husband and daughter have to move on with life without her until she reappears 10 years later or something like that. I gotta say, I think I gave this book 3 stars, which, I mean, it's still okay. I think anybody who reads it will find it pretty enjoyable, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as her other books. I was interested maybe in the first half, but then what I thought it was going to be, okay, spoilers, minor spoilers ahead. I mean, I thought this was gonna be a missing person story, finding out what happened to her, her getting kidnapped and everything. But halfway through, when you figure out that she joins a cult, it turns into a cult book, which I don't think cult books are for me, or maybe just this one wasn't for me. I haven't read that many. But once it hit that point, I was already, I guess I was already not interested in it. I felt like it was so far-fetched. I felt like I no longer felt bad for the main character, or the woman that disappeared. I questioned all of her decisions. Maybe that was Lucinda Berry's point, to get me to question, or to get her audience or her readers to question what happens to people who join cults, and how maybe the story of what happens to them isn't what the people usually assume. But I do gotta say, I wasn't enjoying the characters halfway through. The story took a whole nother turn and I just wasn't feeling it. So 3 stars for that one. After When She Returned, I read Renegades. I thought Renegades would be something that I would enjoy because of the fantasy, sci-fi, superhero aspects. I thought it'd be a really action-packed, fun storyline. But it took me almost 2 months to finish that book because I just was not interested in it. I was just reading it just to get it done. Some parts would kind of pull me back in. Some storylines would get me interested again, but then it just kept dropping. It was like a roller coaster of a plot. The main character was, I guess, hard for me to connect to. I kind of felt she was 2 different people. I didn't really understand her that well. And then I actually enjoyed the side characters more than I enjoyed the main character's point of view. And I didn't really I felt like her conviction towards her side just felt really light to me. Really, you're willing to do all these things to other people. You're willing to put yourself at risk for this half-baked blame that you're placing on this whole entire entity for the death of your family. I don't know, it just didn't make sense to me, so I didn't really feel for the main character. Even the action scenes didn't feel that interesting to me. They felt very boring. I was like, okay, these people fight, okay, move on, and it is hard for me to get into action scenes to really enjoy them. There's only a few books that I've actually genuinely enjoyed the action scenes, but Renegades was not one of it. I even tried to read, or I tried to listen to the audiobook for the sequel. I think it's Arch Enemies, and I mean, I gave it maybe 25 to 50 pages and I was like, never mind, this is not working for me, moving on. So another unfortunately 3-star read. Honestly, I feel like if I didn't like it this much, should I be giving these books 2 stars? But yeah, as it stands, that was 2 3-star reads for the month, and for me that isn't a very good start. The next book that I read after Renegades was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. Oh my gosh, I read this a few weeks ago, so I'm trying to really remember. So this group of friends really were like the main clique when they were in college, and they all come back together for their reunion. And when they come back together, all of the drama and the secrets that happened back in college comes back out. And I think the main thing that drove them apart was, I think in their senior year of college, one of their friends was murdered, and their other friend was accused of being the murderer. However, he was released, I think, or he wasn't convicted because there wasn't enough evidence, but pretty much everybody believed that he was the one that did it. So this book was like a whole lot of drama. It was like one secret coming out to the next person's secret. Like, it went from each person in their group having their secrets exposed, and because of these secrets being exposed, they're now suspected of being the new killer, which is basically the recipe for like most of the book. I gotta say, I thought it was interesting enough. I don't really think that drama just for drama's sake, or like this kind of drama, like college young people drama, is for me. I wasn't really in the mood for that. I was more interested in like having a thriller, like a psychological thriller or something like that, where we'd be trying, like, finding out like real hints into who might have done this. I felt like this was more for like the shock factor of, ooh, this person was dating this person, and this person was doing drugs, and this person, like, at the end of the day, somebody died. I don't care about all this other drama that happened in your college life. So it was another 3-star read for me, unfortunately. And then after that, I was still craving like some sort of horror / thriller read. So I went into Dear Laura. I don't remember who wrote it, but I'll put the image here. I remember this book was really short, and I listened to it on audio, and wow, I can't really say too much about it because it is really short, but basically it was about this woman who has been getting letters from the person that murdered her or maybe not her best friend, her boyfriend, when she was, I think, like 13 or something. So after her boyfriend is murdered, she gets letters every once in a while from the killer, who basically, he says like, if you do this, I will tell you where his body is, or I'll tell you what happens to him. And she feels so much guilt for her boyfriend's disappearance that she listens to this person. She listens to these letters and does like increasingly disturbing things to get more information. I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. Now, the only other book I read by Stephen Graham Jones, My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I absolutely hated that book. I am not sure why I decided to give this author another shot. Like, I really hated that book. And unfortunately, I really disliked Night of the Mannequins as well. I mean, I thought the premise sounded really interesting. These group of, I don't know if they're middle schoolers or high schoolers, they decided to play a prank on the manager of this movie theaters by bringing in a mannequin, dressing him up as a moviegoer, and then, you know, I guess surprising the manager when he comes to check the ticket and realizes it's not a real person. So the mannequin walks away at the end of the movie, just gets up on its own and leaves. It's told in the point of view of one of the boys in the group. And this is another really short one, so I can't really dive too much into it. But the story didn't go where I thought it was going to go. It went in a completely different direction that I did not like, that I did not find interesting, that I actually found really annoying. So I just finished this book just to finish it and didn't want to read it ever again. So actually, I do not recommend this book. But I mean, if you like Stephen Graham Jones' other books, maybe you'll like it, maybe it's just me. Anyway, the next book I read after that, after reading 4 3-star books and 1 1-star, was not having a good month. So I decided to get Monstress Volume 1, and this was the turning point of my reading month. I really love the art style for Monstress. It really gave me Castlevania vibes. I don't know if you've watched that on Netflix, where it's it's very detailed. Like the art style is very detailed and very gory. Like this graphic novel did not pull any punches when it came to the gore and the violence and everything, and I felt like that really added to the story. I also found like the world building and the plot line of what was going on in this world to be very interesting. Like I really want to get more into it so I can figure out what's going on. Basically, we're in the middle of a war between humans and a certain group of humans who can do magic. They're kind of like witches. And then on the other side of the war are magical creatures and magical creatures slash human hybrids. There's a lot of things that happened in the past that have yet to be discovered and are constantly being alluded to as being like terrible, momentous occasions in their history. And then there's also like the one aspect of this story that I find really interesting are these like godlike creatures, or most like actually kind of like the ghosts of godlike creatures that are just wandering around this world. And the art depicting these creatures is just amazing. Like it just makes me really want to figure out like, how did they end up here? What are they? And then also our main character, like there's so much mystery concerning her background. She doesn't even know that much about herself. So she's like trying to find people to tell her what happened to her mom and why is she the way she is. And volume 1 barely got into any of that. So I'm really excited to read the whole first book. I think it's like a compilation of maybe, I don't know if it's the first 4 or 5 volumes. I'm going to be reading that in the upcoming readathon, so I'm really excited for that. And I definitely really recommend Monstress if it sounds like a graphic novel that you'd be interested in. After that, I read A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by I think it's Kingfisher. And I've been hearing quite a lot about this author, and I found the audiobook on Scribd, so I thought, why not? Let's just give this a shot. I wanted something a bit lighter after all of the horrors and thriller novels that I was reading. So I wanted something a bit lighter, kind of like middle grade fantasy, you know, my comfort reads. And with The Wizard's Guide to Baking, it really is what you think it will be. Like it's very light, it's very heartwarming, has lovable main characters and side characters in it that you'll enjoy. The plot isn't too crazy or too intense, and you really find yourself rooting for this main character and rooting for her to succeed. And I really enjoyed the magical baking involved in this heartwarming story. So I definitely recommend this one. Which brings in mind, I think I really enjoyed this because it kind of reminded me of Legends and Lattes. If anybody has any recommendations for books that are similar to Legends and Lattes and A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, you know, has that baking, cooking mixed in with magic, please let me know. I am desperate to find more books like these. Okay, all right, after that, I read A Flicker in the Dark. I forgot who it's by. I'll put the cover right here. So with A Flicker in the Dark, man, to be honest, I could not remember what this book was about. I had to look it up again before recording this video to figure out what it was about. And that doesn't look too good. I mean, I did give it 3 stars, so it was another one of those middle of the road thrillers that are just kind of, you know, you enjoy it for what it is and then you forget about it 5 minutes later. So A Flicker in the Dark was about this girl who is the daughter of a convicted serial killer, and it's kind of a dual timeline between her childhood during the time that her father was committing these murders and got arrested to her life in the present, I think about 15 years later, where she has tried so hard to get her life back together, but she's still dealing with the trauma of her childhood and what her father did. And all of this comes to a head when more teenage girls go missing. So her father was convicted for kidnapping and killing young teenage girls, and when young teenage girls start disappearing in her new city that she lives in, it brings back all those memories and all that pain, and possibly a copycat of her father. So there's that. It was a bit forgettable. I don't remember too much about it. I didn't really enjoy the viewpoint of our main character. After that, the next 2 books I read that I will talk about together is I read Uglies and Pretties by Scott Westerfeld. So those are the first 2 books in Scott Westerfeld's Uglies series. I read this back in junior high and high school. I actually have, I talked a little bit about it in my reading vlog. So I have a lot of fond memories of reading this back in junior high and high school. And I just felt like doing a reread after all of the new books that I was reading. And I mean, I still enjoyed them. I just didn't enjoy them to the extent that I did back in the day. So I'm not sure if it was that was a good idea to reread them. I'm so glad I did, because I did forget a lot about what happened. I don't think these books really hold up now, like after the last 10-15 years, so I don't think they hold up as well, but I'm glad I still have them on my shelf. I'm glad I reread them. I do think the themes discussed in the story are still relevant today, as far as like societal expectations, beauty standards, the environmental issues that humans are causing in this day and age, still very relevant. I found the sci-fi aspects of the story pretty interesting. That's pretty much it. I mean, I did not enjoy the main character as much as I did back in the day. I felt she was much more, like, I remember her being much more interesting and much more like cool back in the day, but I mean, in this reread, I felt like she was just along for the ride. But it is a good adventure story. Themes are good, sci-fi elements are good, and if you want another, like, if you enjoy those dystopian novels from like the 2000s, I definitely recommend this one. I mean, if you take it for what it is. And that's about it, guys. Those are all 10 books that I read in the month of September. I'm hoping to read another 10 in October and hopefully have a better reading month overall with the books that I'm reading. So wish me luck. And thank you for joining me for another video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.